Unit 29. Necropaleocercu/circum mini/minu intersur cosyn words from mythology and history. Necro comes from the Greek nekros, meaning dead body, so it's not surprising that it shows up in some unappetizing places. A necrophagous insect, for instance, is one that feeds on dead bodies. When homicide investigators discover a corpse, they may use the insect evidence to figure out when the person died. Necrosis, death of living tissue, usually within a limited area. He had ignored the spider bite for several days, and his doctor was alarmed to see that serious necrosis had set in. Cells die naturally after a period of time, but may also die as a result of injuries, infections, or cancer. Burns produce necrosis, and the bedsores suffered by nursing home patients are a form of necrosis. The dreaded condition known as gangrene, in which the dying tissue turns black or green, is another form. When untreated, the dying cells release substances that lead to the death of surrounding cells, so untreated necrosis can lead to death. Treatment usually requires the removal of the necrotic tissue, and in severe cases can even involve amputating a limb. Necromancer, one who conjures the spirits of the dead in order to magically reveal the future or influence the course of events. Her specialty is communication with the dead, and she might once have been known as a necromancer, but her sign says simply psychic. The practice of necromancy goes back as far as the ancient Assyrians and Babylonians and has continued through all the centuries since. In the Middle Ages, it became associated with black magic, condemned by the Church. It had to be practiced secretly. In Europe, a necromancer might work in a remote graveyard at night, standing within a magical circle he had drawn to shield himself from the anger of the spirits. The grave of a person who had died suddenly or violently might be plundered for its body parts. The unused energy these were believed to contain made them valuable in the necromantic ceremony. But body parts aren't essential to necromancy, which is now practiced by channelers, mediums, and shamans, and even by groups of amateurs sitting around a Ouija board. Necropolis, a cemetery, especially a large, elaborate cemetery of an ancient city. On Sundays, the downtown is like a necropolis, and he was always slightly disturbed by the complete absence of life among all those buildings. With its polis ending, meaning city, see polis/polit, a necropolis is a city of the dead. Most of the famous necropolises of Egypt line the Nile River across from their cities. In ancient Greece and Rome, a necropolis would often line the road leading out of a city. In the 1940s, a great Roman necropolis was discovered under the Vatican's St. Peter's Basilica. Some more recent cemeteries especially deserve the name necropolis because they resemble cities of above-ground tombs, a necessity in low-lying areas such as New Orleans, where a high water table prevents underground burial. Necropsy and autopsy, especially one performed on an animal. Daisy's sudden death was so mysterious that we paid for a necropsy, and it turned out she'd been a victim of lethal chemicals in our imported dog food. Human autopsies are generally performed either to determine the cause of death or to observe the deadly effects of a disease for research or education purposes. Autopsies may be necessary when tracking an epidemic. They're also performed to discover whether a death might actually have resulted from murder, and if so, what evidence it might reveal that could help catch the murderer. Animal necropsies are actually more common than human autopsies, since a farmer with livestock is always concerned that whatever killed one animal not pose a threat to the others. Palea comes from the Greek paleos, meaning ancient, that is, older than old. The prefix sometimes gets attached to very recognizable words. Paleobiology, for instance, deals with the biology of fossil organisms. Paleogeography is the study of geography in earlier geological eras, and paleoecology is the study of the relationship of plants and animals to their environment in those eras. Paleolithic, of or relating to the earliest period of the Stone Age, characterized by rough or chipped stone implements. He raves about the health benefits of his Paleolithic diet, the kind that our pre-agricultural, hunting and gathering Stone Age ancestors would have eaten. Since lithos means stone in Greek, the name Paleolithic was given to the older part of the Stone Age. The first known period of human culture, the Paleolithic, actually covers almost all of human history, from the first use of stone tools around 2.5 million years ago until the invention of agriculture around 10,000 years ago. For almost all that time, humans used the very crudest of stone tools, produced by chipping away flakes of stone in order to make an edge for an axe or knife. Near the end of the period, animal bones and antlers were being used for tools, especially pointed tools, and sculpted figures and cave art were being produced. The Paleolithic gave way to the Mesolithic, Middle Stone Age, period, with its tools made of polished stone, wood, and bone. Paleography. 1. The study of ancient writings and inscriptions. 2. Ancient writings. For her thesis on Central American paleography, she spent a winter in Honduras studying rock inscriptions 30 miles upriver from the nearest town. The world's oldest literature dates from about 4,000 years ago, from the land known as Sumer, now southern Iraq. Early writing took the form of pictographs, very simple pictures that first represented things or ideas and later came to represent actual words. The first actual alphabet, in which each character represents a sound, appeared in the same general region about 500 years later. But writing developed in very different ways in different parts of the world, and 1,000 years later, when Europeans first arrived in the New World, alphabetic writing still wasn't being used anywhere in the Americas. Decoding some ancient languages has proven to be a huge task for paleographers, and determining the age and the source of a piece of writing can pose major challenges. Paleontology, a science dealing with the life of past geological periods as known from fossil remains. Her obsession with dinosaurs as a child continued through her teens, and no one was surprised when she started graduate school in paleontology. Until the 1820s, hardly anyone even suspected that dinosaurs had ever existed. In the years since, paleontology has sought to discover the entire history of life on Earth, from the era of single-celled organisms up into the human era. Paleontologists continue to make remarkable discoveries, such as that a huge meteorite that fell in the Gulf of Mexico wiped out the dinosaurs, all except the birds, the only surviving dinosaurs. Radiometric dating can reveal the age, often tens of millions of years, of a rock or fossil or a tiny grain of pollen by measuring how much its radioactive elements have disintegrated. The study of molecules of DNA, RNA, and proteins has also become important for dating. Paleontologists often consult with geologists searching for oil, gas, and coal deposits, since all these fossil fuels were formed from plant and animal remains. Paleozoic, the era of geological history, ending about 248 million years ago, in which vertebrates and land plants first appeared. His geological specialty was the beginning of the Paleozoic, from which the earliest fish fossils date. The Greek root zo means animal, so names such as Paleozoic were invented to refer to a period in the development of animal life. For geologists, the Paleozoic era is followed by the Mesozoic, meso meaning middle, which is followed by the Cenozoic, cen meaning recent. Eras are huge stretches of time. Geologists break eras down into smaller periods and epochs. Thus, the Paleozoic ends with the Permian period, the Mesozoic ends with the Upper Cretaceous epoch, and the Cenozoic ends with the Holocene epoch, the epoch in which we are living. The Paleozoic era produced the first fish, the first land plants, the first insects, and the first amphibians and reptiles. The dinosaurs, birds, and mammals had to wait for the Mesozoic.